Touching Spirit Bear interview questions. Number one, what inspired you to write Touching Spirit Bear? The idea for Touching Spirit Bear came from different directions. My own past was one of being an at risk student, raised in a foreign country, never schooled in any way until fourth grade. And then I was away at boarding school with strict English matrons who would strap my hand with leather straps for something done wrong. I've also raised a black bear named Buffy, and noticing how Buffy mirrors my own moods gave me the idea for the spirit bear mirroring Cole's attitudes. I even had a real spirit bear walk up within 20 feet of me on a shoreline once. What a magnificent sight! I met a native spiritual leader in British Columbia who taught me how he worked with juveniles in his villages. My research took me up to both British Columbia and Alaska, where real banishments took place. Also, a friend of mine who works as a lawyer with traditional justice in Minneapolis introduced me to circle justice, more commonly known as restorative justice. All of these ingredients helped me define the final book. The main catalyst for the book, though, was the morning I turned on the television and watched the tragedy of Columbine play out in front of my eyes. Number two, are any of the characters or events in Touching Spirit Bear based on actual people or your personal experiences? The characters are both fictitious and real. I came from a very dysfunctional family, which set the stage for Cole having such a family. The characters Peter, Cole, Garvey, and Edwin all mirror who I was at different times in my life. I didn't have to imagine Cole's anger or Peter's feeling of helplessness one bit to portray them. But I also know there were many lessons I learned when I discovered that life could be wonderful if we treat it so. Those lessons I portrayed with Garvey and Edwin. Number three, what do you see as the most valuable lesson Cole learns from his experience on the island? The most valuable lesson Cole learns on the island is that he is a part of life's circle. And what that means is that everything in his life and everything he does is connected. He can't hurt anything without hurting himself. When Cole realizes that he has been a fool thinking he controlled his life, that day he surrenders to life and allows himself to be a part of the circle. He realizes that controlling life and making good decisions that affect life are two different things. He can make decisions that positively mold his life and at the same time realize that he is part of a larger current of life that controls all people and all things. Number four, do you think Cole would have had less of a chance to change for the better if he'd gone to jail instead of participating in circle justice? If Cole had been sent to jail, he would most likely have been housed with kids who shared his negative attitude. I can't imagine what other influences besides isolation could have made him search into his soul the way he did on the island. Jail would have served to simply punish Cole. Perhaps fear of future punishment would have changed his future behavior, but I don't think it would have changed his heart the way being on the island did. Number five, could you survive a year alone on the island Cole is banished to? Yes, I truly do think I could undergo such an experience. Many events in my life have served to separate me from society for long periods of introspection. I've gone up to the boundary waters in northern Minnesota on a couple of occasions for extended periods, alone in the woods. Also, in 1976, I rode a horse across the United States from northern Minnesota to Oregon. The months I spent mostly alone during that ride were times when I struggled with my anger the way Cole did on the island. For the last 25 years, I have lived in a log home away from people in the mountains of Montana. Seclusion has never been difficult for me. What has been difficult is coming to the realization that I'm a good person and that if I can get over my anger, life can be the most wonderful experience ever imagined. Number six, Edwin introduces some rituals meant to help Cole deal with his anger. Do any of your own strategies for coping with anger resemble Edwin's? The rituals Edwin shows to Cole are not magic or something only he could communicate. They are simply devices that allowed Cole to look inward. The cold pond took Cole's mind off his anger long enough to reflect objectively on that anger. Carrying the ancestor rock was a struggle that made him focus on the rock so that his mind did not wander away from the words Edwin spoke as they climbed. Breaking the sticks of anger, rolling away his anger with the rock, dancing the dances, and carving the totems, these were all devices that allowed Cole to focus inward. In my life, I have found that many methods that may not be the same as Cole's experience, but they've served the same purpose. For me, starting each day with quiet time is important. Taking time whenever I can to walk in the woods and to reflect on how I am a part of all that is around me, I find that very helpful. I love the notion that reality is not what happens around me, but how I react to what happens. If a truck drives past me, that is not the reality. If I step in front of that truck, I choose to create one reality. If I choose to step out of its way, that creates another reality. All people, especially young people, need to know the power they carry to affect their own reality. When you are developing a character that goes through the kind of grueling emotional ride that Cole experiences, how does it affect you? For me, developing the character of Cole was to revisit my own past. This was not comfortable. It meant dredging up emotions and feelings that I thought were comfortably settled in my own past. It was very uncomfortable to revisit that anger and fear, but it was necessary to communicate the raw anger that Cole felt at the beginning of touching Spirit Bear. Number 8. What do you find to be the most challenging and the most gratifying aspects of being an author? The most challenging aspect of being an author is that nothing really prepares you for the journey. Each book, each contract, each appearance is a fresh challenge and uncharted territory. It has been a most wonderful journey that has demanded that I believe totally in myself. Nobody is there to hold your hand at 2 a.m. when you are on the 13th rewrite and a chapter isn't working. Sometimes, after 6 months of working on a book, you find yourself doubting the very premise of your novel. At those times, being a successful author demands that you dig way deep inside yourself and believe in that self. As for the most rewarding aspect, that would have to be seeing the completed book and experiencing how it affects life. To have a child come up and tell you that your book was the first book they ever read and that now they want to read more, what could be more satisfying than that? I am able to travel now to pretty much anywhere I want and meet the most wonderful people I could ever have imagined. Life has become stir fried, but it is so delicious. Number 9, you obviously have a deep respect for nature and the lessons it can teach us. Where do you think that deep respect comes from? I would have to say my respect for nature comes from two places. Because I grew up without many friends, I spent most of my time alone. I grew to love animals because they didn't beat me up or tease me. I learned to love the unconditional love that animals offered. I also came to love nature from my travels. To stand on the great plains of the Masai Mara in Kenya and to see a herd of elephants in one direction, and to turn your head slowly and see giraffes, hippopotamuses, lions, and zebras as far as the eye can see, that makes me realize how important it is to protect our planet. If the only place we can see these magnificent animals is in a zoo, it is our own humanity that we have caged. My many years of being alone in nature have allowed me to listen to and watch the life cycles evolving around me. We have so much to learn from the earth and her creatures. She is our greatest teacher, if we only listen. How did Buffy, the black bear you adopted and raised, come to be a part of your family? Buffy was a research animal. I don't know a whole lot about his past except that he had been declawed at a research facility and would most likely have been killed. Once they declaw an animal, it cannot be released into the wild, and zoos no longer want them for display. I have the same federal and state licenses as a zoo, which allows me to raise Buffy. But I do not recommend that people raise wild animals. I've seen many, many cases where people have tried, and it always ends tragically for the animal. If you raise a 50-pound dog wrongly, it becomes a 50-pound nuisance. If you raise a 750-pound bear wrongly, it can kill you. Raising Buffy has been a rewarding experience for me only because I have devoted my life to his care and well being. Number 11. Have you learned things from Buffy as Cole learned things from the Spirit Bear? Yes, I have learned so many things from Buffy. The same lessons that Cole learned from the Spirit Bear. Buffy has taught me that how I treat him is how he treats me. This is also so true of how we treat the world in which we live. Buffy also taught me to be sensitive and kind. The only way Buffy will trust me is if I am trustworthy. You can't lie to a bear the way you can to a human. Buffy has also taught me to accept and forgive myself.